What's happening YouTube? PokePhD here, and just a video kind of sharing some of my thoughts and like sentiment towards probably modern Pokemon, how the market's going, how things are looking, and generally what my thoughts are surrounding that at this kind of this moment in time, I guess. And this is on top of the fact that I was at the London Card Show this past weekend, so I was vending there on the Sunday. And if anyone hasn't checked out that show before and hasn't been, and you're able to make it, basically, if you're obviously in the UK, Europe, I'd certainly recommend it. It was a fantastic show this weekend. It's the third time I've been vending at the show, and yeah, I enjoyed it every time. But I kind of came home a little bit confused, I guess, but then also not at the same time. I guess there'd be a few different markers that I've kind of noticed over the last few months where it's made me really kind of not second guess myself, but really contemplate how things are going, at least with modern Pokemon, how the market is, as I mentioned, just kind of give some thought and insight into that. And after the show, just it was quite a successful weekend for me personally. So I didn't expect it to go as well as it did, and to kind of give further insight into that, I was thinking about putting together a video about the actual kind of ins and outs of exactly what kind of went into that, but some like numbers and figures and stuff probably going to be a bit fuzzy, so I wasn't too sure about that. But if that's something people are interested in, please let me know. I might be able to put something together just in case. But yeah, generally throughout the show, it's really good to meet some people I hadn't spoken to before, met people I'd met previously at previous shows, and that I know from like Instagram, for example. Actually, someone maybe you're watching as well noticed me. He said that he'd actually watched some of my videos on YouTube, which was quite a surprise to hear, considering I'm just past 250 subscribers. So it was a bit of a mad one, but generally it was it's a really lovely environment. I kind of made a bit of an arse of myself at the beginning, where I came in a little bit late and I dropped some stuff on the floor, and then like people were like quite quick to come and help, and these are all obviously all kind of small points, probably irrelevant to kind of the discourse in the video, but just generally just wanted to say, if it's something you're able to attend, I would certainly recommend it. But the kind of main thought afterwards was that, like, I guess just this kind of desire and this hype for modern product, for modern Pokemon, is just like beyond anything that I could comprehend. And been hearing a few people talk about it, and in that the demand was insane and demand's being crazy. And when you look at, for example, Crown Zenith as at release, I mentioned in a previous video that the fact that the price was at like MSRP was just insane to me, considering all the prices of previous sets. Even when they came out, Evolving Skies and Brilliant Stars weren't even that expensive. At least the ETBs, similar kind of story with the booster boxes, but the things quickly change. But the fact that Crown Zenith came out kind of immediately at like a great level, a great price tag, there was so much kind of hype immediately. Of course, V-Star Universe as well obviously certainly helped with that. And as soon as the set comes out, people are ripping tons of it open. I got a case. I usually get at least one case of a product every time there's a new release, and that case disappeared pretty quickly. I had to kind of take a couple of boxes and put them aside just for myself. Contacted my distributor, and they said there's no sign of anything coming anytime soon. So I don't know, just that was one major sign I saw, where it was like this insatiable desire to open Crown Zenith, and you don't blame anyone for that. I opened some myself. I on a live stream. Sorry, I live streamed myself opening some Crown Zenith a couple of weeks back, and didn't get anything good, but that itch it's really there, just because it is such a fun product to open. The same with all the special sets, with your Shining Fates. With your so God, I can't even think, Hidden Fates, that kind of thing. It's always just so much fun to open when you start talking about like crazy reverse holo, Galarian Gallery, Training Gallery sets, that kind of thing. And obviously that's something that seeped into the non-special sets as well towards the end of this era, and it's certainly one factor that's really contributed in my opinion to, and I guess it's quite obvious, right? that these sets towards the end of Sword and Shield have been so good. One of the reasons is because of obviously them having the training galleries, and the arts in the training galleries are just fantastic, and the fact that they are as common as they are because they're something you find in the reverse hollow slot. And if you're not, basically you open that product, if you don't get like an actual ultra rare or higher card from like the hollow slot, you're probably gonna get something in the reverse hollow slot. Maybe not every pack, but maybe at least every other pack, maybe every third pack. So I guess the experience of opening it is just fantastic. The sets themselves are obviously really good, kind of the standard, the art of art, the kind of popular Pokemon, especially Lugia and Silver Tempest, and then Giratina and Lost Origin, and generally the fact that even the booster boxes of those, the sets up until Lost Origin, the booster boxes were coming out and they were hitting £90, £90, around about the £100 price tag. And Silver Tempest and Lost Origin aren't like insane. They're not Evolving Skies or anything like that. And I'm not saying they will be, but they've come out immediately over that kind of $90, $100 price tag, which I think it's an important. There's a certain psychological aspect of that number, right? And they like surpassed that, and they've stayed at that price tag up until now. We're going to see how much stock we're going to get of those sets. Obviously, they're already printing them for the new boxes, new collection boxes, for example, coming in for Scarlet and Violet. But it'll be interesting to see how they perform over the coming months relative to something like Evolving Skies. Are we going to see a reprint for that? Kind of, who knows? But there's just, I guess my point really is, and I know I'm rambling a little bit, is that I think some of this behavior is a little bit unexpected in terms of that the kind of product comes out and then immediately it's kind of close to, not the booster boxes of course, but for example Crown Zenith, it was basically MSRP. Like I was selling boxes for £50 immediately, and they've at least maintained that price. We're going to see how that changes with the amount of stocked and reprints and stuff that come through over the following months. But that insatiable desire just continues to be there, because I'm hearing from people, have you got this? Have you got Silver Tempest? Have you got Crown Zenith? That's all I'm hearing from people, and it was so evident at that card show this past weekend. And that's what people were coming up to me, and they were asking about completing these binder sets, buying this, the Silver Tempest and Lost Origin booster boxes. Oh, have you got any Crown Zenith? That's the stuff, and that's the stuff that people really, really had their eyes on. And not to say people weren't interested in some of the vintage stuff that I had as well, but like it was like normal, like families, and for a lot of people this isn't necessarily like news, nothing I haven't heard of before, but I think there was just I found it was just like what seemed like kind of like normal family people who were just like, hey, we just want to open some Pokemon, enjoy Pokemon with our children, for example, and they were super they were getting into it. There were a couple of examples where they were like children probably like 8, 9, 10 years of age, and they'd come and flick through a binder full of Sword and Shield secret rares or whatever, and then like they had one of their parents come, and their parents apparently now big fans as well, obviously having some conversations with people, and they were like, oh, my kid likes Pokemon, and I was like, oh, I like the cards, so I've decided to start collecting. They're not going for vintage, they're not interested in vintage in any way, they're not interested in graded cards in any way either. What they want is modern product. What they want to do is open modern product, and it's just evident, like it's, as I said, like it's not, I guess it was just hard to contemplate the fact that there is just so much demand out there, and I've heard it from multiple people at this point. But again, it's just, I don't know if I just struggle to get my head around it, but there's a certain point where I guess it kind of clicks. And for me, that the weekend, I guess, or at least at some point during the weekend, I was like, this is actually insane. The fact that there is just so much demand for this product. And I guess more so because I see it in a different way. Like, for example, as I said, I pick up a case of every product, but it's only like the better product, for example, that I kind of keep a hold of. And even then, I don't necessarily do that. Like for example, when I picked up product probably 2020, 2021, Once I got to a certain price point, I was just selling it. Like, for example, Vivid Voltage, once I hit £200 a box, I just sold the boxes that I had. I just thought it'd be stupid to keep hold of them. Or it did something similar for Evolving Skies, which obviously is a shame compared to what we see now, but that's just how things are. But I think this just insatiable demand is just continued, and I don't see it in the same way that I see it with vintage, just because it's that kind of normal, as I said, like kind of normal family person, right? Who's just interested in opening modern product, in completing binder sets. And I guess it kind of like, I wouldn't say like it kind of pushes the market up a little bit, but it's just that natural, like authentic interest in Pokemon. And these people who do that, like this example I gave of a parent who decided to start collecting Pokemon because their kid enjoyed it, they're, I imagine at some point, going to move on to something else within Pokemon. There, maybe they'll look at graded cards, maybe they'll start looking at vintage cards. So it's a door, it's an avenue into kind of looking into product further. And I think for that reason, it's just a really, really fantastic thing that there are just so many people getting brought into Pokemon as of the last few months, and I feel like over the last few months it has kind of exaggerated and been I guess exacerbated in that sense. I feel like, well, it was quite evident. Obviously, we had the hype in 2020, 2021, and that I guess slowed down in 2022. But I feel like once we got towards the end of the year, there's a lot of things you notice and patterns you see, and you just like, this isn't normal for like a falling market, right? Because everyone was like, oh, Pokemon's slowing down, and obviously it was, because things were so hectic the 2 years before. But it's like the kind of market was like, nah, I'm not. I don't want to kind of see this negativity and keep kind of going and falling down, because there's, well, a lot of factors, of course, but it's not like we're sat here now and no one wants to open modern product because all the hype was 2 years ago. It's absolutely not the case. It's never been as popular as it is today, genuinely. Whether that be in 1999, I don't really know, because I was too young to really understand it to that extent. But probably hasn't been as popular. But modern Pokemon hasn't been as popular probably as it is today at this point. And it feels like with all the stuff that's going on, with all the kind of like indicators you see, that it's only getting greater. Like, interest is only getting greater day in and day out, and as we go along. So just like as a summary from what I saw at the card show, just people were just like, yeah, modern, what have you got? I want to complete this set. There were a few people who then, probably a little bit older, as I say, like that person who's maybe been in the hobby a little bit longer. Oh, I want graded modern product. No, I mean, some people, I still manage to sell a decent amount of vintage. There's always that demand for base sets is crazy. Base sets always, like, anything could be going on in the world and people would want to be buying base set Pokemon cards, graded Pokemon base set cards. That's always going to happen, but it was genuinely dwarfed by all the people who wanted modern, and that's all they could think about, and that included obviously graded modern product as well. It was crazy to think. And then, if I look back over my eBay sales, my website sales, which are the kind of bulk of the kind of my sales, my revenue from selling Pokemon stuff, it's mostly modern stuff. The odd vintage card, and I do have a lot of vintage cards, and nothing exceptional. Like, usually the good stuff that's not part of my personal collection sells reasonably quickly, but I have more modern en masse, I guess, and obviously it makes sense for more of that to sell. But the stuff that's selling as well just kind of bemuses me sometimes. Like, for example, I've sent a decent amount of Japanese cards, like Reshiram and Charizard GX, the one that came in the kind of decks in English at some point. You know which one I'm talking about. It's just like the normal Ultra Rare, the normal GX. I'm like, I graded some Mew VMAX in Japanese just because they were like ridiculously cheap for a Mew card, especially relative to the English version. And some graded 10s, some graded 9s. Did get, I feel like I just kept a little bit shafted in my last return, but I got a few 9s back, and I put the 9s up, and for me at that point, a 9, like I'm hoping to just, I guess, kind of break even on those, and then get something out of the 10s. Right, ideally I'm getting all 10s, of course, but depends obviously on the submission. Most of the time I'm okay getting like 70 or 80% 10s on modern stuff, but the last one wasn't great. But I list these PSA 9s and they sell faster than the 10s, and they sell more frequently than the 10s, and it's kind of bemused me because the prices that they're selling at as well. Like, I'm not listing them, I'm not auctioning them off at 99 pence. I'm selling them at decent buy now, like 25-30 quid, which means after fees and postage I'm probably making a couple of pounds. And as I said, I'm going into it thinking whatever I get as 9s, I want to obviously minimize as much as possible, do all the pre-grading I can do, but some things still pass through. I'm far from perfect at pre-grading. And then these cards come back and I'm like, oh, bloody hell, I got more 9s. But they sell, and again, no, I'm not making crazy money on them, but they're selling. People are buying them, and I'm making a tad, a small amount of profit on them. And it's crazy to think that you can actually do that. You can, like, it's that kind of never punished cliche with like grading Pokemon cards. And there is a point where you will be like, if you're getting 8s, you are going to struggle. Then you're probably going to have to auction them off, and you're probably going to get less, especially less than what you paid for grading, for example, with it being like $15 at the moment. But the fact that you can grade a modern card in a 9 and actually make you quid, and I'm not talking like a kind of higher end card, I'm talking about like a random GX of a popular Pokemon. The fact that that can happen is just insane. There are obviously some parallels with vintage stuff, like, for example, I gave the example before of base set, and it's a similar thing. Like, commons, uncommons, base set cards, they do really, really well. Like, for example, Pikachu's and your Charmanders do fantastically well. They sell for absurd amounts sometimes in PSA 9, PSA 10. It's not like we don't see the same thing, but it's just, I guess, it's just the sheer number. Like you expect that it's a base set and it's a Pikachu and it's a graded card, and people maybe don't want to pay $100, £100 for the 10, so they'll go for the 9. You expect that because that popularity has always been there. But when you list like a Reshiram and Charizard GX, just a basic Ultra GX, and it goes for as much as it does in a PSA 9, it's, I don't know. As I said, like, I'm getting my head around it. It's just one of those where you don't believe it until you see it, and then you see it and you still don't believe it, and it probably takes you a little while to think, okay, this has happened multiple times now. Maybe this is just the reality now. And as I said, I was looking at my eBay sales, and a huge portion of those sales, a huge amount of my sales were just genuinely like PSA 9 modern cards. And like I do sell like a variety, lower price to higher price cards and stuff like that. Especially on things like platforms like Instagram, where I try not to, I'm not bothered about selling the cheaper cards on Instagram. They go a lot faster on eBay than they do on Instagram. So I'm happy to kind of save the more expensive stuff from my website, where I have lower fees, than Instagram, where I just basically direct someone to the website, and then pay like the 2% fee instead of the eBay's 13%. But the fact that I can just list like insane numbers of like random modern graded cards, and there's very, very consistent amount of interest in that is just it's just insane. And some of the prices you're getting, especially when like the premiums from 10s, like, for example, I've been grading a lot of Evolving Skies product, like the kind of regular full art Vs. If I don't have any of the alt arts, like, for example, grade like a Vaporeon V, and it will sell for 50 or 60 quid. And pick up the card for like a tenner, grade it for like $15, works out like £20, including like shipping and or return shipping to me from PSA and any other fees. Yeah, I'm making $20 or $30 just, or pounds off that. When I use the currencies, just feel free to kind of exchange to your will. But my point is, it's just it feels like I'm constantly getting that validation in terms of like, should I be grading modern? Yeah, you should, because there's that desire. That desire just continues to be there. I kind of just wanted to talk about a couple of other things as well, on top of, I guess that was more like anecdotal, as well as just some kind of data. Well, not real data, of course, but kind of from what I've seen, like from my sales from the event this weekend. But I also wanted to talk about some other signs, and this is not necessarily talking about English products. I wanted to kind of speak a little bit about some of the Japanese product. Like, for example, if anyone is unaware, if you go onto eBay right now and search for Scarlet or Violet Japanese booster box and tell me how much it is, because for the price that it is utterly insane. There is no reason for that to be at the price that it is. It is, sure, it's the first set of Scarlet and Violet. Scarlet, obviously, it's going to be Scarlet and Violet base, right? I don't know if there's another specific name for it, but it's not a special set. I don't think there's a set list is insane. I'm not sure if there are. Obviously, I think it's the like the Gyarados EX and the Arcanine EX are like the two, like the terrestrial EX cards are the ones you probably want to get. I don't know the ins and out of the set list itself. I can't say I've looked at it in too much detail, but as far as I'm aware, those are kind of the two cards that you want to get from the set. And the box is going for like almost $100. The fact that that is the case is unbelievable. As far as I'm aware, Japanese retails around about like $40, 35, 40, and then you can usually pick them up for about like 50 if you're obviously buying from a Western market. And the fact that they are at the prices that they are, perhaps that's to do with distribution and printing, because that seems like it's a bit of an issue on the English side at the moment. As I mentioned before, I spoke to my distributor and they told me basically that they don't know what's coming in, and they're going to let me know whenever they find out. And as soon as they do find out, like I randomly was told the other day that I could purchase a little bit of Fusion Strike and a little bit of Lost Origin, I believe, out of nowhere, and there was no kind of there's no kind of trail you could follow as to why suddenly I could buy Fusion Strike from over a year ago, and why I could now also buy Lost Origin from like 4 or 5 months ago. So it was a bit odd, and they were also very limited as well. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on. I don't know whether they just went really crazy for Crown Zenith and printed it to hell. But besides the point, I guess in terms of the Japanese side, I don't see there being like an obvious kind of lack of product, I guess, on that end. It's not like it's difficult to get the product. It's just the fact that it is as expensive as it is, I guess. Well, just makes me really think that the demand is insane, especially if it's coming from the Western side. I guess the Japanese are probably a little more consistent in that, and with the Japanese model, the way it works in terms of they kind of figure out what demand is and they kind of print more towards demand, and compared to the English part of Pokemon, where they just print as much as they can bloody print, and that's why the quality control is so bad. But not really, that demand on Japanese product now, surely it's got to be a consequence or a result of the fact that the English, everything in kind of Western Pokemon, English Pokemon has grown so much, and because of that, there are just so many more people interested in modern and vintage Japanese product, just Japanese product generally, and that's really been a significant contributor to that. Sure, the Japanese market's exploded recently. I've heard a few tales about how in Japan right now, you can, you're not even able to pick up cards cheaper than you were able to pick them up from the US buying, or the UK buying into Japan. As in, like, the prices are pretty much similar. You go to a Japanese card store and it's probably going to be the same price as you or I will be able to buy it on eBay internationally. So I've heard a few tales about that, and how card stores are getting absolutely kind of sorry, what's the word? not run to the ground, but like fleeced, or basically all the products being purchased. And I've also noticed quite a few more native Japanese people. This is mostly on Instagram, so again, just something I've seen, and certainly more anecdotal, that they are grading more Japanese product. And there's a few accounts that I kind of like to follow and keep an eye out, and they are grading some awesome cards, and they're obviously able to kind of pick up that kind of stuff in Japan a lot easier, or at least they have better eyes on it than we can internationally. But I guess that influence, again, that's an influence coming from the Western market. There was really no, as far as I'm aware, there was no real grading from Japanese, or at least internally in Japan, to anywhere near the extent that there seems to be at the moment. So just that's obviously having a knock-on effect in everywhere else, and there's just so much more interest in the Japanese market than there was maybe even a year ago, even as crazy as things were maybe back in 2021. So that one, the kind of price of that Scarlet and Violet booster box is just, again, blows me away. I keep saying, like, I can't get my head around it. I just find it unbelievable that that's the case. And even when you show me, even when I look at the price, I just still can't believe it. Another one was V-Star Universe. I made a video about it recently, and my point, kind of my summary of that video would be that I was just waiting to see whenever this reprint came out, and as soon as that reprint came out, I was expecting it to kind of follow that VMAX Climax price point, where we got to like $80, $90, $100. I'm not sure if it ever got that high initially, but if not that, then like something like Shiny Star V, and then reprint comes, knocks it to like $50, $60, $70, and at that point I'm going to pick them up. And I don't believe, I'm not completely in the know as to how much has been reprinted at this point. I'm aware that product has been obviously at least being slowly produced, and is still kind of plugging that demand in the market. But again, like, the price is what it was 2 months ago, and Crown Zenith came out, and everyone was like, yeah, well, V-Star Universe, the prices are going to go down, and there was a small knock on the singles prices, as I'm sure you can imagine. Wasn't that crazy from what I saw again, and the booster boxes are still 80, 90 quid. And kind of makes me second guess as to whether they're going to get to that 60, £50 price that VMAX Climax got to eventually, after it got its kind of second print and got printed to a very, very decent amount. So yeah, kind of a accumulation of those two things, of just kind of, I guess, in my eyes, kind of parallels what we're seeing in the English market. And just generally, I just think Pokemon, let me just need to adjust, but Pokemon seems to just be in a real fantastic position at the moment, in that there's always been that demand for vintage, for vintage product. Certainly not to, everything has changed since 2020, of course. Although I was in the hobby and buying and selling and trading Pokemon cards back in awkward time, like Heart Gold, Soul Silver. So yeah, around about 2010. I didn't get back into the hobby until around about a decade later. For myself, and probably a lot of people who might tune in will be thinking the same thing, that they're part of kind of this newer COVID, around COVID intake. But that's only like, we've spoke about how things slowed down in 2022 at the end of 2021, but be interesting to see where we are compared to that boom. And I don't think we are, in terms of like raw numbers and hype and demand, quite there yet, where we're talking like you can basically grade, you can list like a PSA 6 base set non-holo, like a base set common card, and it would probably sell for like $20. Like, that's not happening now, and I don't think it's probably going to happen anytime soon. I don't think that level of irrationality is going to come until we get another like huge number of people who just don't know what they're doing, or just have no interest in the hobby, and suddenly think it's the thing to do at the moment. but there's a certain, there's a certain level of rationality now that I want to say rationality, but with some of the prices people are paying for modern product, I don't know if it is. But yeah, generally, I just think it's an interesting time to be a Pokemon fan, particularly if you're interested in modern, because the thing with vintage is vintage is what it is. It obviously changes and moves around, and there's a lot of interest in watching the dynamics play out for like specific, like maybe old Japanese promos, and just generally watching how pop changes for like certain first edition cards. And it's always nice looking at base set first edition PSA 10 Charizard trends, all that kind of stuff. But if you're interested in modern Pokemon, it's, I guess, the dynamism and the variety that you get, I think, is just fantastic. And this weekend certainly made me a much bigger fan. Not to say that I wasn't a big fan already, but it certainly made me a bigger fan, just to see that huge amount of interest. And it gives me a lot of a belief that this interest and this desire and demand is just going to continue, and I can see things growing. Like, as I mentioned, the event from this weekend was kind of the biggest or my most successful, and it only seems to get better every time. Hopefully, whenever the next one is in 3 or 4 months, I might be able to report back and say it was even better than it was in February. But that's obviously something to wait and see. But that's what my thinking is, and that's how I've been seeing things the last few months. And I kind of just wanted to share a few points around that, and some kind of thoughts and indicators as to why that's happening. But yeah, I think if you've got any questions or any discussion points, I'm sure there's a lot that I came out with now that you're probably thinking, what on earth is he talking about? But if you have any discussion points or anything like that, feel free to leave a comment. If you obviously enjoyed the video as well, please feel free to leave a like. And if you've managed to make it this far, I'd really appreciate a subscription, or to subscribe, and check out any of my other videos if you are interested in that kind of thing. I look absolutely exhausted. You can see here, got ridiculous bags under my eyes, so I'm probably going to go ahead and get a decent amount of sleep. But otherwise, I will catch you on the next video.